Welcome to Zach and Steve Have a Podcast. I'm Zach.
I'm Steve.
And this is one of an episode that we've done.
Yeah,
like
we're
the
done
30,
counting at the beginning.
We got a lot of episodes out there already.
It says it in the notes. That's all that matters. But we are so happy to be back with you this Friday episode.
Yeah, we got a couple interesting things going on.
We do.
Do you want to talk about your interesting thing first?
Well, my interesting thing is, I mean, I don't know if it's interesting to everybody, but it's my son's birthday.
It should be interesting to everybody.
It's my youngest son's birthday.
Pete.
Petey turned 2 today.
Ah, Pete.
And he hit terrible 2s like 6 months ago. But he's now gotten into this thing where now he throws things off of tables and stuff where like if you put his food plate in front of him, he'll look at it and he'll do like the most, I mean, it's like you have a second to catch it because he'll put his hand out like he's going to swat at it, and you literally have a second to grab that plate or it's flying.
Oh, yeah.
And then he swats it, and then he'll give Sarah his hand and say, "Sorry, Mommy."
Oh, man.
I'm like, oh, kid. And then we laugh because
it's funny. It's cute.
It's ridiculous because he's like, he's putting his hand out like, oh, gosh, the kid is just, he's a handful, but he's so cute Pete. Too. I adore Pete. He's all smiles, he's all huggy and stuff, but he loves to destroy. So we got him. He loves basketball.
Okay.
So Luke likes to play basketball outside. We got a full-size basketball hoop for Luke outside. Pete loves to go out there and he goes basketball. He sounds like the aliens from Space Jam.
Yeah.
So, but he loves to like have the basketball and then he throws it. I mean, it barely goes anywhere, and he's like, "Yay!" And so we bought him one of those little Tykes basketball hoops, like the one that he could just slam dunk every time. He opened it, and I mean that's all he played with for over an hour this morning.
Nice.
Like, I could not. Like a 2-year-old holding their attention for more than 10 minutes.
Oh yeah,
it's impressive. He threw the ball into the hoop, just like dunked it.
Yeah.
Then he would run, chase it, pick it back up, come back, dunk it. Like,
nice.
And the whole time it's, yay! I'm like, oh, Petey.
He loves it.
Yeah, he does. Like
it's nothing like getting your kid a gift that they love.
I know. It's the funny thing is, so both Luke and Pete love basketball, and I have never liked basketball.
Yeah. I was a basketball guy.
I know. Yeah, I know you are. I know there's lots of guys that like really are into it and love playing it and love watching it.
Yeah.
I've never enjoyed anything of it. Playing the game, like watching the game.
Really?
It's never been my thing.
Yeah.
It's just never been my thing. And people will say, well, try college basketball. But like here's the thing. This is what drives me insane about basketball. And you're going to laugh because this is so stupid. But I hate the squeaking.
The squeaking? Like on the sneakers? Really? That's what it is. It's not nothing to do with the game.
Drives me insane. Like I can't watch a game.
Really?
Because I get so dialed into the squeaking sound. I'm like, oh my goodness, they can't like baby powder these shoes or something. I know they'd be sliding all over.
Fall.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You got.
Oh my goodness, I can't take it. Like I watch 5 minutes of a basketball game and I can't get into it. It's too much back and forth. I'm not a back and forth sports kind of guy. Like I like hockey, fine. But it's not my favorite.
You like slow sports.
I like slower sports, more like
baseball and football.
Baseball and football are my 2 favorite sports. I like stuff that's more methodical and gives you time to take a break. Right? Baseball, you can go, you can play, and then you can go have a sandwich, come back, you can play for a little bit.
Yeah, the little boys out there, girls out in the outfield.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like
picking dandelions.
Let's play a game like you're when you're batting, you're like in the dugout. I mean, you can have a snow cone, and nobody's gonna be like, "Hey, put that down. You might be playing soon." It's like I know I have 20 minutes until the next time I'm up. So I that's my kind of sport. Well, football, I just love football. The sport of football is the greatest.
Yeah, basketball, you have to have your shoes at a point where they're sticking to the floor because you will slide all around.
That's be like real tacky.
Yeah. So when you're playing, you always wanted the floor to be get all the dust off of it. There'd be big like dust mops that we'd have practice and stuff. They bring the big dust mops out.
I've seen that.
And then you'd always be taking
California duster.
You taking your hand and you're wiping the bottom of your shoes with it, try to get the dust off.
Oh my goodness! Is that why guys do that?
Yeah, because you slip around and you have to have your traction, and you'll fall.
I always wonder. I'm like, why do these basketball guys keep touching the bottom of their feet?
Yeah, it's getting like the dust off.
They're getting the dust off so they don't slide.
Exactly. You want the squeak because you have to have traction.
I understand that traction is probably necessary, but if they could find a way to remove that from the telecast, I would enjoy the game so much more.
We even had these like sticky pads that were between the benches. They were you could pull they were plastic. You could pull like sheets of plastic, and they were kind of like those rollers you have for your clothes.
Yeah,
the
like a lint roller kind
but
of
it was
thing.
big and plastic. So you go over there and you like get your feet on there and get them sticky, and then and once they got all covered with dirt, you'd rip that sheet off and you'd have a new plastic sheet in there. So
And then your
that's the
shoes
name
would
of the
be
game.
like literally sticking to
Yeah.
the floors because a little bit of that residue.
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
So you're like,
Makes it even worse.
it drives me nuts.
that's funny.
Like,
My shoes are squeaking today because of the rain. Another hurricane is coming here.
what?
There's a hurricane.
What are you talking about?
There's a
Is it
hurricane.
Hurricane Steve?
What we talked about the other day.
We've never talked about that.
Well, it's Hurricane Nicole. It's,
Okay.
What is it with these names for
Like,
hurricanes?
Nicole does not sound like
it
a
doesn't
hurricane
sound
name.
threatening. Like
No.
Ian was before. I mean, I'm not
Ian's-
saying that. I mean, these hurricanes do destruction. They should have names that are scary.
Inspire fear.
Yeah,
Yes.
like I don't know, something other than Nicole. Like
Yes.
like Nicole's coming. Oh wow, batten down the hatches.
Goliath. Hurricane Goliath is on its way, and they should just all be called Goliath.
Has there ever been a Hurricane Steve?
Zach, you and I. Okay, so Zach and I this is back when Hurricane Ian.
Yeah, because we had the same.
and we're not making light of this situation
No.
at all because it was obviously devastating. But
It's
we're-
just the name.
But we were wondering, like, when have names been used? And so we looked it up, and there was I forget when, it was in early 2000s, there was Cyclone Steve. That's what it's
That
called.
is a tremendous name.
It was Cyclone Steve, and it was in Australia, because in Australians they don't call them hurricanes, they call them cyclones.
just to be different,
I don't know why.
or maybe we're different.
Maybe we're I don't know who's I mean, they're both right. It's just a different name for the same thing. So if we would have done that British quiz,
Cyclone.
they would have called it a hurdy-gurdy or something. I don't know. Anyway, so there was Cyclone Steve in the early 2000s. But then we didn't realize this. There was like
What was Cyclone Steve? Like lots of devastation, or is he one of those ones that was?
we haven't got to the joke that you're trying to make. Okay, the joke you're trying to make, we'll get to right here. So there was one called Hurricane Steven, spelt like my name, Steven. I'm not a PH, I'm a V. But it was a future casted hurricane for 2042. Who knew that there was future casted hurricanes?
Yeah, I don't understand.
And it said
it was like in a magazine article. Or
it
something?
was no. It was on like a I forget what the name of the site was, but it was like all dedicated to like tracking hurricanes. And this Hurricane Steven that's coming in 2042 is supposed to be one of the most devastating hurricanes initially. But then we were reading it, and it says essentially it loses interest and moves on. Like Hurricane Steven is really bold up front, but then becomes weak fast and ends. And Zach thought that was the funniest thing. Now, okay, let's put it into context. 2042 Steve is going to be approaching 70 years old.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, wait, no, 60 years old.
60 years old.
I can't do math.
That's all right.
Math's not important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To life. For a youth pastor, like the only math I have to do is how many pizza slices for this number of teens. So how many pizzas do I need? But yeah, I'll be in my late 50s. So yeah, that probably will be it'll probably be the big joke. Cyrus is going to call me and be like, hey, look, it's Hurricane Steven finally came. It hit hard, but now it's slowing down.
Oh man!
And I'll say, leave me alone, Zach. How'd you get this number?
So you're assuming we're not going to be friends?
Yeah,
at that point in time?
I'm almost certain at that point. Yeah. We'll have said something to one another on this podcast, on this very podcast.
This one today.
That ended.
So that's your future cast?
A decade-long friendship. No, it's not my actual future cast. It's just funny. How'd you get this number? We went to court over this, Zach. Why are you calling me?
That's dark.
Yeah, it is dark. I had to it's protective. I had to go into protective custody. Like, how do you know where I'm at? I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Do you have
man,
something
that's
that
funny.
you wanted to mention?
No.
Please tell me that was that it.
That
when
was-
you said I have something I wanted to talk
Oh,
about.
the hurricane. Yeah.
Oh, Well, yeah, no, I mean, obviously we're not making light of actual hurricanes or actual situations where people are put into danger. Our hearts and our prayers obviously go out to those who've struggled
For sure.
with that. But
it's very rainy here today.
it is very rainy here. Do you know what I did yesterday too, Zach?
What'd you do?
I put up my Christmas lights.
What? Already?
I put them up. We're not going to light them just yet.
So just because it was warm.
It was a very warm, nice.
Yeah,
day.
that's always the thing when you're in November and you get a warm day, or even October.
Yep.
And you're like, should I do it today or should I wait till December when it could be really cold?
So I went up there and I did my Clark Griswold best. I put up all my lights. The little twinkling lights aren't twinkling. You know, the little lights aren't twinkling, Clark. Thanks, Art. Thanks for noticing.
Oh man!
But yeah,
funny.
so I went up there. But so I had to put up several new strands, and I realized after I put them all up that the colors don't like the whites are a little bit off, and it's driving me insane.
I didn't think you turned them on.
Well, I had to test them.
Oh, okay.
So I put them up, I test them, and then it's, oh no, this white is a slightly different shade than this white. And it's not like soft white and bright white. They were bought years apart, and probably some of them are like
Dimmer.
a little bit dimmer and older. I was like, oh, goodness. Yeah, Sarah's like, don't worry about it. Nobody
No
cares.
one's going to notice.
Nobody. Well, everybody's going to notice now because I said it on the podcast.
Exactly.
So they're going to be looking for it.
That's every student's
All
gonna
10
come to your
people
house.
that know where I live.
They'll be like,
but
"Hey,
anyway.
Steve, look at your lights."
Yeah, we're in Christmas mode, man. Like I've given up on like waiting until December.
Really?
All right? I want 2 whole months of Christmas cheer.
There you go.
I started listening to Christmas music this morning while I was making pancakes for the kids.
Really?
Yeah.
Way too early for me.
No way, dude.
I think it's because my birthday's in the middle of November. I can't do Christmas before my birthday.
Yeah.
And then Thanksgiving's like the week after.
It's a reminder that Zach's birthday's up next
Yes,
week.
exactly.
The 17th.
Send me gifts. Lots of gifts.
Are you going to be away at your brother's for your birthday?
No, I'll be here.
What is the 17th? Is that Monday?
It's Thursday of next week.
Oh, I'm a week off. I'm thinking next week's Thanksgiving. It's the following week.
Yeah, we still got a little
plenty
bit of time.
Anyway.
You're just way early on your Christmas lights.
No, I'm not.
I know. So
It's only as early as you want it to be.
That's true. You can leave them up all year round. Some people do.
Some people do. I don't like that. I don't like that. That's not my thing. I'm not doing that.
Good.
Anyway,
what are we going to talk about today?
Zach,
Stevie?
today we found a fantastic, interesting article on the church that we thought we would bring to you. And of course, this is something we found on Relevant Magazine.
Yeah, we've been doing that the last few weeks. I like look at these articles and talking about them. Give us
talking about topical things.
things that are going on in the life of the church.
Yeah. And this is important to the life of the church, incredibly important, because this is why should you get involved in a church?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is something that's been widely debated ever since COVID.
And even before COVID, I had a coworker back in the early 2000s, and we're talking about church, and I invite him to church, and he says, I love God, and I read my Bible, but I just don't like the idea of a church. I don't like...
What didn't he like about it?
He didn't like the people. He didn't like the roles. They felt like he was being... They were like pushing on him, and just the way he felt when he went through the church, just felt always like he was being judged. And
that's an unfortunate reality.
And just didn't want to go and said, I'll just do church, but I don't want to go to church.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate reality of why people don't want to go to church a lot of times. That was the excuse I heard pre-COVID.
Yeah.
A lot was, it's judgmental. I can grow on my own. I like to read my Bible. I love God, all of that. But there is a call for us to be together as one.
Right.
Now, post-COVID, it's become a lot easier because for 2 years, and I'm not just saying it at our church, like churches in general, a lot of them moved to a live stream of some kind so that they can still get their messages out.
Yeah.
And, and something that became like a temporary solution to a temporary issue has become somewhat of a permanent solution for some people because they've realized, well, it's a lot easier for me to just roll out of bed in my pajama bottoms or whatever, in my pajamas,
right,
and sit down on the couch, watch the message, and I can even watch 2 messages. I could watch 3 messages if I'm really ambitious, and I can take in all that information, and I can allow it to soak in, and then I can move throughout my day, and I don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I will say this: I love watching messages at home.
Yeah.
Sarah and I watch. Sarah more so than me. I think she watches or listens to at least a dozen messages every week throughout
really?
the week. Yeah, she's my wife is as diligent as they come and being committed to growing in her faith.
Nice.
I wish I had her same drive, because
Yeah.
I mean she's a really good multitasker, and so she could listen to something and absorb it while doing something else. And I mean
Yeah.
she's doing pretty complicated tasks a lot of times where it's like she's our church accountant,
Right.
so I mean, or she's watching, she's home with our kids, or, whatever the case might be, but she's always absorbing
That's great.
that stuff, and she'll point things out to me. She'll send me podcasts. I'm like, how do you do all this at once? And but like,
She's a superhero.
she, in a lot of ways, she is. So she listens to a lot of messages throughout the week. I struggle to, because I mean, I can only do it when I can focus
Yeah.
directly on it. As otherwise, and even if I'm focused directly on it, my brain still wanders.
Yeah.
Like I struggle to like
Yeah,
pay
I
attention to one
don't
thing.
like watching online messages, and I don't. Maybe it's because I'm not in the room with it, but I'm always
Mm-hmm. Feel like
picking,
you're-
picking out things.
Yeah.
Like, why do they have this background? What's going on here? Like, why is this happening? Like
Like
that-
you're
that's-
watching people watch church.
Yes.
Almost, is that
And
the feeling
yes,
that you get?
it doesn't feel like I'm there and I'm part of it, and
Yeah.
I don't like watching it at all.
I think, I mean, my conviction, I think your conviction as well, is like understanding the principle behind why we are at church for a service too. It's, it's to be part of a community.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's people out there that will say, well, I don't necessarily love being around people and like being part of like a large community of people or even a small community of people. I'm a lot more comfortable growing on my own. And I'm not here to dog on people like that. I understand some people are more shy. They're more introverted. I mean, there's plenty of introverts that come out to church, but I'm saying
Right.
there's some people that just like to be less social, and it takes a lot of energy for them to get out. But there is a reason why we do come together.
Yeah.
And I think this is an important thing to talk about, especially post-COVID, when even people that I love being part of communities have just found greater ease in, well, this is one thing I could take out of my schedule to add other things into my schedule.
Sure.
I can listen to church in the car while I'm driving to the thing I want to actually do. You know?
Basically, yeah.
So why the article at Relevant, it was written by Tom Rayner, says this. It's an uncomfortable conversation. I was in an uncomfortable conversation with a young couple where they were talking about leaving the church. I'm paraphrasing. The wife said, without hesitation, it's nothing against you or the church members, Pastor. We just think we could serve Christ better without the institutional limits of a church, being inside the church, being part of a church, being a member of a church. I could serve Christ a lot better than that. Now, Zach, how would you respond to that? I hate to put you on the spot.
I would say
You could potentially do it, right?
yes. It depends on. I mean, if you are digging into God's word, if you are seeking Him daily, and you feel you're being restricted by your church, maybe A, you need to find a new church,
Yeah.
or B, hey, maybe God's calling me to do something else. But I also think that young couple might be missing the point of what God is calling them to
Yes.
do as a follower of Him. We are not called to follow Him and fill ourselves up only.
Yep.
We are called to follow God and to do what He has for us, understand what His love is, and that's His people. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love others as yourself. And part of the church community is the community,
Yeah.
and is the people, and walking alongside people as they go through difficulties, and being there to pray for people, being there to bring a meal, being there just to be part of somebody's life.
Yeah.
Through the ups and downs of what's going on at your church and in your community. And when you pull yourself out of that to grow closer to God, you can grow closer to God maybe, but you could also be missing what God has for you as His follower.
Yeah, and I would have to question once again, non-judgmentally, but you have to start questioning, all right, the motivation behind why you love God. This is why like I think I see a lot of people moving away from the traditional style of church. It's because it's the self-enrichment. It's if I hear a good message, and if in my mind church is all about the message on Sunday morning, and that's what I get in my head, and that's what I'm allowing to enrich my life, which it can be
Sure.
it'd be very edifying. It helps us grow as believers.
I mean, I think when you think about which church you're going to pick, I think that's probably the number one thing people want.
That's going to
Pick
be
a church. It's like the light in the lighthouse, right? That's
Yeah.
what draws someone in. Oh, can the
Yes.
pastor speak a message that's going to help me to understand God better, and I want to sit there and listen to it? Or is it going to be like Steve and his sneakers? I'm going to get in there and I just can't stand it because all I hear is sneakers going the whole time, and I can't focus or grow the God.
This person wore, like smelled, or like, you know what I mean? Like you have perfumes, or this person sang too loud, or this person wore a hat, or this person did this. Like, and we get focused on all those things and we're allowing ourselves to become distracted. That is one of the issues. But I mean, yes, the very first thing that does draw us into a church is the pastor's ability to communicate a message that's going to allow us to grow as individuals. I mean, when I first stepped into the doors of New Life Baptist Church back in 2006, as an adult, I came here, like I said before, as a child, but that was
right.
I got invited by my friend to come to youth group kind of deal.
Yeah, they're not picking their church because the youth pastor preaches a good message, right?
Yeah, well, they didn't even have a youth pastor back then either. Like, this was pre-youth pastor days. They had just volunteers.
Yeah.
But going back to my whole point here is, like, I came in, I listened to our then senior pastor, Pastor John, deliver a message. I listened to the worship, and it drew me in. I'm like, oh, I get it. But sometimes that's where our understanding of the church stops.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what the church is for. And if that's what we treat the church as, it's just a place for me to receive a message so I could use it in my life. I mean, that is good,
Sure.
For us to be enriched. But if that's all we're doing with it, then yeah, it's going to be really easy for us to say, I just have to stay home and listen to the message, and it's the same thing.
Exactly.
I can still serve. Like, I could do something nice for somebody today, or
I'll still send my check.
I'll still send my check. I'll still tithe. I'll still do some of the motions, but it's lacking the heart of what it's all about. And, we always come back to the same thing, because it's the heartbeat of the Word of God, which is the Great Commandment. The Bible really centers around this thought, is that we love God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and we love our neighbor as ourself. And that's the two things that the church is all about. It's about, we serve God, we come and bless God, we worship God collectively as His creation, in building relationship with Him, which He desires more than anything. And then we build relationships with each other as God desires, because like, there's nothing that God loves more than us coming together. Him looking at, like, I created Joe and I created Zach, and I created Billy, and I created Sally, and all these different people. We can go down the list of all the names. I create all these people, and they like each other, like that, and they're worshiping me together. That's awesome. That's like, that to God is like the greatest thing. So we are to love God with everything, and we always get that part a lot of times, and that's why we could so easily get separated from the church. But then it's like, oh, I gotta love other people, I gotta care for other people. I don't know. Right. This is the hard part. But is it necessary? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, yeah, I get why people say, like, I can still serve, I can still love God, I can still follow God. Yeah, you can, but there's a lot of great reasons why that God gives us. It's not that man came up with to keep you connected in a church. God gives us because He knows we need one another. He created us for one another.
Right.
So you want me to get into some of these points that the article points out, Zach? And I'm going to try to say this word correctly, because in our preparation for this, I mispronounced this word horribly because I had never heard it before. And Zach's like, I said it one way, and then I said it another way, and Zach's like, oh, I've heard it that way. And I'm like, oh, okay. The Bible is cogently Did I say that right?
Cogently.
Cogently.
Yeah.
Clear on the importance of church membership. What does cogently mean?
It's like you can understand it. It's like it's not. It's a weird word to use.
Why not just say the Bible is clear on the
Yeah.
importance of church membership?
Yeah.
Is it like saying like perfectly clear?
Yeah, like there's no. You shouldn't be able to misunderstand it.
There we go. All right. So it says this from Acts chapter 2, verse 42, where the community of believers formed the first church through the first 3 chapters of Revelation. So they're saying from that point until the very first 3 verses, because after the first 3 chapters of Revelation, it gets into
Prophecy and such.
prophecy. The New Testament is written to the church. It's like directed to the church, the community of believers collectively, or is written from the context of the local church, people coming together. And it says the local church is God's plan A, and he does not have a plan B.
Yeah.
There's no like, just do it by yourselves. No, from the very beginning, even when it was dangerous for them to gather, they gathered.
Yeah.
And it says 1 Corinthians chapter 12 strongly communicates the idea of membership. Each person in the church is part of the local body, and the body does not function well unless its members are functioning well. So that's why we join a church, is saying we are committing ourselves not to a building,
No.
not to a bunch of pastors. We're committing ourselves to one another,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And so that's like number one, and it should really hit us. Like, okay, I'm saying that I belong to New Life Baptist Church, not because like I want to guarantee them a check every week.
Right.
Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like I want to care about the other people that have also dedicated their lives to attending or being members of New Life Baptist Church.
Right.
And that goes for any church.
Right.
For at that point.
Right.
We belong to one another. So, and like we all have different gifts, we all have different abilities, we all have different things that we could do to communicate to one another the importance of God, the importance of caring for
Right.
our neighbor. Right.
Yeah. Keep going. You're doing
Oh,
great.
no, that's all I had on that.
Yeah, no,
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that's pretty clear.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty
So yeah,
cogent.
we gotta stop thinking about it as like a club we're joining, and more of I'm joining this because I want people to know that I care,
Right.
and I want to serve others because God has gifted me in certain ways.
Right. And I feel like, and our job as church leaders is to make sure people feel like they have a place where they can serve and an opportunity to serve, because that's what we're called to do. We're called to serve others and take the love of Christ and his teachings to the world. And, we come on Sundays and get plugged in. Where can I get plugged in? Excuse me. Sorry.
Oh, buddy.
I know it's rough. Where can I get plugged in at my local church so I can be used for God?
Yes.
And if I don't feel like I can get plugged in there, maybe that's why some people are like, well, I want to serve. I'm not being used here. Maybe I'll go somewhere else. I can serve better.
Yeah.
So that's our job as leaders, is to make sure people have a spot, have a purpose. If someone wants to get plugged in and understands what God, the reasons why I'm coming to church, let's find a place for them and something they can do to
Absolutely.
further the kingdom.
Yeah, further the kingdom, and also, it also helps with personal fulfillment too.
Sure.
Like we're all looking for like this idea of that I belong to something that's greater than me, and that I'm fulfilling something I'm part of something greater, so that I have that personal fulfillment that I've been seeking in my life. Like
And I think
my
that should
purpose
be-
is complete.
That should not be the reason. That should be a secondary reason. But I feel like that is the reason. You know what I mean?
Sometimes that people use.
Yeah. And
Fair.
Yeah. Right. I think that should be just a byproduct, like your cup overflowing and you're enjoying the abundance. But I feel like that's the reason why we choose which church it was, because I have the personal fulfillment. I can feel it. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. It's a secondary thing. And I'm just saying it is a byproduct.
Yeah.
for certain.
And I'm not putting down your point either. I'm just saying that's the reason why people choose a church, and it shouldn't be.
And you're right. You are right, and thank you for clarifying that. And I think it's an important clarification that needs to be be made. And I was thinking about this because I mean, I get a lot of times this idea, or not this idea, but like I've been told by several people about membership in general, like not just about coming to church, but being a member. I don't need to be a member. Like I had one person tell me they didn't want to be a member because they're like, all it gives me is voting rights. I'm like, that's the reason why you don't care about being a member. To me, membership is more like almost the idea of marriage versus just dating somebody. All right,
I can see it. Yeah.
You're committing yourself
Yeah.
to someone, and you're saying, like, on paper, like, I've committed myself to you before other people.
Yeah, I like that.
And you're not committing yourself to, for example, New Life Baptist Church. You're not committing yourself to the pastors of New Life Baptist Church or to the giving aspect of New Life Baptist Church. You're committing yourself to serving the other people that call this place home.
Right. And we share the vision of how we can serve the community greater as a whole.
Exactly. So it's calling yourself to a higher standard. And we live in a day and age where people are less likely to, even in marriage, it's like, well, even though I take these vows, I'm still going to just scoot out of it if I don't like it anymore. And that's the thing. We really got to look at our hearts.
Yeah.
Like, why do we feel that way? But because we should take those vows, and hold them as something important. And I'm not just saying something to say it. I'm saying it because I do long to care for other people, and I'm committing myself to a congregation of people that I'm going to care for.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond that. Like, we can't have the mentality the pastors are just going to take care of everybody. At a church like ours, 6 pastors can't do that job. We can't take care of that many people. Like, people that are members of the church that have dedicated themselves to this, that have given up their time, to dedicate it to others, are vitally important.
Yeah.
Because if the pastors are left to do it by themselves, we'll never be able to complete it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely impossible. I like this. It says this too. It's kind of expanding upon the last point. It says membership in the local church is other focused, and we just talked about that a little bit. But I like that, and you know this one, Zachy, because it's your favorite book of the New Testament, Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 25.
Something about a mountain.
Incorrect. And let us not neglect our meeting together,
Okay.
as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near.
Yeah.
So since the day that Jesus left the earth and ascended into heaven, his day of return has been imminent. But what does it say? Well, the writer of Hebrews, who we don't know who it was, we discussed that last week.
We did.
The mysteries of the Bible episode, which was one of my favorite episodes to record. We are meant to encourage one another.
Yes.
Like, if we're sitting at home watching a message or listening to a message, as educational as it might be to our hearts and our minds, we're missing the point of after the message. What are we doing? Like, after the message here at New Life, you can go into the Commons and hang out and have a coffee and talk about the message, whatever.
Right.
Get involved in a small group, whatever the case might be. You can care for one another. That's one of the things that I've been made really aware of over the past few months of my life here at the church. Is God giving me opportunity? You okay?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Was God giving me opportunities to care for people, to pray with people, to people just opening up to me unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I love it, not because they're coming to me and they're opening up to me, because God's giving me the opportunity to care for people.
Right.
And you might say to yourself, Steve, you're a pastor. Don't you do that all the time? Well, yes, I go out of my way to check on people.
Yeah.
But like, in the course of a conversation where people just feel that they don't really know me, but they feel like they can open up to me and I can pray with them and that kind of thing, I'm like, man, God, this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Like, this is what the church is all about, is being able to trust one another too with our hearts. And like, so yeah, we have to be here to encourage one another, to lift each other up, to hold each other accountable, which is actually the next point that in this article is the church membership. And they say, like, Like they use all these big words, and I'm pretty sure it was like somebody was like thesaurus. What's but it really encourages accountability.
Yeah.
Like that's what membership is all about. Is I'm not a good Christian on my own. I need people around me
Right.
that are going to call me on my stuff,
Yeah.
to put it nicely.
Right. And you want people that are doing that love God and not doing it for selfish reasons.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not trying to manipulate you to some way of thinking. No, it's like pointing you back to the one that matters most, which is God. So when I'm making decisions that don't reflect that or don't bless God's name, then like that needs to be called out. And when we're on our own, when we're left to our own devices, unfortunately, and we might say to ourselves, I would never do that. But we're always going to go back to what's easiest, which is caring for ourselves.
Yeah.
Not caring for others and not caring for God. But it's like, well, God wants me to be happy, which is constantly the mentality that people in general come back to. And I'm even guilty of that. Like,
Right.
Doesn't God want me to be happy? Well, I don't know. What do you think?
No. At no point does God say, I want you to be happy. He wants us to follow him so we have fulfillment.
Oh, come on, Zach. Doesn't God want us to be a little... No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, I agree with you 100%.
The word is joy. It's it's a contentment in whatever happens, right? And
Absolutely.
I think Paul, that's, when you read Paul, that's one of the big, things that run through Paul's teaching is this idea of being content through all the afflictions that has happened to Paul. And look, because the only thing that matters in my life is Christ, for me to die is gain, right?
Yes.
To me to go through all of these, problems and afflictions and being tortured and whipped and all the things that happened to Paul, it doesn't matter, right? Because I have Christ in my life.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I mean, and we want to believe that, life is about us being happy because that's what the world teaches us.
Right.
And so we think, well, God created the world, so obviously he wants me to be happy while I'm in it. No, that's not it. He wants you to be joyful.
And it's joy in the fact that my relationship with Jesus is better than anything else
That this world can offer.
this world can offer, because there is an eternal security and a daily confidence and just protection, security, purpose that comes through knowing where I belong in God's plan
Yeah.
for me, right?
Yep.
And it gives me something that people search for. What is the meaning of my being here on earth, right? And when you have, Jesus giving you the roadmap of your life, this is what I want you to do. This is how I want you to do it. These are the people I want you to minister to. Understand who I am, understand my teaching, understand what I have for you and others, and go and do it. And that is your purpose in life, right? And when you start to add, things to it that aren't of that, you can feel it. When you're in it, when you truly have given your life over to God in a way that you're changing your focus from yourself to others and to him, when stuff comes that it takes you away from that, you begin to feel it, right? And like, how do I know that I'm following God's path for my life? Well, when you get on it, you begin to understand what the Bible is teaching about, making straight paths and not everything's going to go well for you, but through these difficulties, you are going to feel God presence and all of these things. And when you're in that, you begin to understand that, okay, this is who I am in Christ, and this is I don't want this other stuff, right?
Exactly. That's what we come to realize over time is the more I practice this and held accountable, the more I realize that this is so much better than anything.
Right,
I can give myself.
and and your relationship with the people in your church help you to stay on that path.
Exactly.
And because we're all going to veer and go sideways and,
Yep.
get into ourselves and pick the things that are easy and the things that are fun and you know, like taste good, right? Like that's
Yep.
the thing. Like if I had my choice, I'm going to like I always come back to food when I'm doing
Yeah.
analogies. I'm going to pick the thing that tastes good.
I'm going to get a
has
cheesy
ni-
gordita crunch
has a nice crunch to it
every day.
over something that tastes bad that's good for me, right?
Yeah.
But not that following God tastes bad, right? But it takes a more mature
But you're saying it's
palate.
like, it's the
in order
junk
to-
food
Sure.
instead of the thing that's actually nutritious.
Right.
And like, so you're not saying it doesn't taste good, but it's the thing that's better for me.
Right.
You know, you could look at a plate of burgers and a plate of broccoli and you know one thing is definitely better for you because it doesn't have a bunch of like, you know, fat and gristle and whatever in it. But it's like, it's easier to eat because I like the flavor of it. Well,
Right.
like, yeah, but you
And-
should
and-
know
and-
what's better for you.
And these are just big, you know, like analogy.
Yeah, these are illustrations.
Illustrations, sure.
Yeah.
But the purpose of what we're talking about for this, what the article and the local church is, the people that you partner alongside people who are doing the exact same thing you are, trying to navigate this world in a way that honors God and fulfills that great commandment on our life, and we can help each other. We can hold each other accountable, and we can encourage each other, right? As the you know the writer of Hebrews says, encourage each other today,
Yep.
not tomorrow. Not I'm going to watch this message today and maybe I'll call somebody sometime this week. No, I'm there with people and I'm encouraging them as we're walking through this together.
And I think it's another thing that people need to recognize too. As you say that, I brought another thing to mind is that church is not just about Sunday mornings. And because, I mean, it's so easy on Sunday mornings to come in, listen to a message and leave. And if that's all we ever do within the church, then it's like, yeah, it's a no brainer. I could just do this from home. It's a lot easier than me having to spend money on gas. Like, yeah. But it goes beyond that. Like the really important aspect of it is I'm going to commit myself to being part of a community, being part of a small group, being part of a ministry, being part of like, you know, clean up or tear down or
You know who are the happiest people that I see are the people that are serving.
yeah.
You go down to our bread basket, those
Yeah.
people that are serving people, they're like
60 volunteers that are all happy.
they're running around and they've got, everybody's got their thing they're doing and everybody's happy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like if my job, my work, nobody is happy in there. Like everybody's miserable because they have to.
do it.
They have to be there. This is for
Yeah.
a paycheck. No, you're doing it out of loving God, right?
Yeah.
And you're taking time out of.
There's no pay.
No, it's on a Saturday morning. Like I got stuff to do on a Saturday, right? But I'm
Yeah.
taking time
That's
away.
my time.
Yeah, I'm taking time away and going and doing this, and everybody is so happy.
But then they walk away and they're still happy. It's
Yeah.
not like nobody walks away from that situation and be like, I just wasted an entire morning.
Right.
No, it's like, man, that felt good.
Right.
And like you want to do it again.
We're packing shoe boxes this weekend
I
for
know.
Operation
And
Christmas.
we're doing
Shop.
that, Saturday morning. Well, that's tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And those ladies that run that ministry are some of the happiest people I know
Right.
on this earth. Like they do it out of the goodness of their
And
hearts.
maybe you're not in a ministry and you're thinking, I just don't have time for that. Like, I would love to do that, but my schedule's so busy. I've got all this going on, this and that. Well, maybe it's a time for you to take a step back and saying, okay, I'm going to choose the things that are kingdom important.
Yeah.
And as I'm doing that, I'm going to find that fulfillment, not that happiness,
Yeah.
but that joy and that contentment that nourishes our soul.
Yes.
Instead of, puts the Band-Aid on it.
Exactly.
Puts the Gordita Crunch on it. That
Yeah.
helps us feel better for a day, and then we
Really,
feel terrible
Gordita
later.
Crunch, yeah. But no, you're completely right. It's like maybe my kid doesn't need to be in a third sport this year. Maybe they
Right.
pick their two favorite things to do all school year, and then the rest of the time we're dedicating to us being like growing together
Right.
as a community of believers. Because like, guess what? We lose that time. That time doesn't come back.
Right.
Like we only have a finite amount of hours with our kids before they graduate from high school and they move on to college and they become adults. And so, yeah, there's, and even speaking to students that are listening to this, make wise decisions. Like
Right.
you don't need to be involved in every extracurricular.
Right.
I know it looks good on a resume for college,
It doesn't matter.
but no,
It matters a little bit.
it
but
matters a little bit, but not to the point where you are so maxed out that you can't breathe and you're like up until 12 o'clock at night doing homework and,
Right.
and don't have a social life. Like God wants first and foremost for you to find joy within him, which means surrounding yourself with fellow believers and building off of one another. And then that kind of gives us that motivation and ability to push through all the difficulties. So don't take on more than what you need to.
Yeah.
You don't need to do a sport every quarter or, every 9 weeks. You don't need to be part of something different. It's like, okay, let's settle down and see what's
You'll
actually
never have
important.
a conversation with an adult who has grown children, and they're never going to say to you, man, I wish I would have spent less time with my kids.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So if you're a parent out there and you're thinking, man, we're going to pack more things in here, kids are going to do more stuff and like that. Well, choose things that are going to be kingdom honoring, whatever that could be.
Kingdom building, kingdom honoring.
Yeah, community, but right. And you are going to find more fulfillment in that than you would be doing other stuff. And that could be stuff at your school.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be being part of a sports team, or
You can be. You can be a light on your sports team.
absolutely.
You can be a light in
Those aren't bad things, but when you're doing 13 of them and you don't have time for anything else, you're
going to get burnt out.
Yeah.
There's no question that you're going to get burnt out. So you have to pick we have to be wise with our time. And we live in a day and age where it's the easy distraction is just put more on your plate, put more on your plate, put more on your plate. And then it's like, I can't breathe.
Right.
And I'm burnt out and I'm maxed out and I don't understand why I feel depressed. And I'm once again, that's not a dig at clinical depression or anything like that. I'm talking about I can't figure out why I feel so down all the time and so tired all the time. So we've maxed ourselves out to the point where we can't even get our head above water.
Right.
And that's
so serving God shouldn't be just another thing we add to that list.
Exactly. It's like we're doing this as something we find joy in doing it.
And it's removing something else and adding what's going to be fulfilling.
Yeah. One of my favorite things this year was when we served in Pittsburgh, we did the Light of Life ministry. And honestly, the greatest thing that I received in all of that, it was just a blessing, was the people that just said thank you.
Yeah.
And that, I was like, oh, this is awesome. People love are being served, they're being cared for, they're being taught God's word, and they're thankful for it. And that's the greatest blessing. I find joy in that. It was hard work.
Right.
It took dedication. I had to go away from my home. I had to, I couldn't sleep in my comfortable bed, yada, yada.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I got to serve people and care for people. And we will find joy in our service.
Right.
But like Zach said, if it's just another obligation that we add to the table, it does us no good.
Right. It's like looking at that plate of food we talked about earlier with the burgers and the broccoli and thinking, you know what? I don't really want to eat that. I want those burgers, but the broccoli is good for me. So I'm going to eat all the burgers, and then I'm going to eat the broccoli after, and then I'll be
Shove
good.
it all down.
Yeah, and it's like, well, no, you just missed the
miserable.
whole. You missed the whole point. You're not going to if you're thinking about dieting or whatever, is kind of like the analogy we're using here. Okay, I ate the broccoli, but you ate 3 burgers too, so it's really not going to help you at all.
Yeah, it's not helping you. You just added.
It
will help you because you ate a bunch of fiber in that analogy, but in the grand scheme of things, you've just you've overstuffed yourself, and you're not enjoying any of it.
Right.
At first it was great, but at the end of the day, it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I am exhausted and I feel lethargic.
Yeah.
I don't want to move.
So it's replacing. It's not moving around.
Yep.
It's replacing something with what God wants you to do over something that
You want to do.
Yeah,
personal desires versus God's desires. And I mean, sometimes those things can align, which is awesome.
Right.
I want to do Operation Christmas Child box packing. God needs me to do this because it blesses people. Cool.
Yeah,
it's that's a win-win.
And that's
But it's not always going to be a win-win, but we can still do things with joy.
And that's when they talk about using your gifts and abilities to honor God. Mm-hmm. Everyone's given certain gifts and abilities that are yours, and you are good at things. And so using those things, you find even more fulfillment because I'm good at this. I enjoy doing this. Like you said with Operation Christmas Child, you enjoying doing the boxes. Not that everything we do is enjoyable, but there's all kinds of things to do in the kingdom, and we're all different. Like Paul describes us different body parts, right? And we all have different gifts and abilities. So maybe your service is something different than your friends, but this fulfills me in a way because I can use my singing ability. I can use, whatever, my teaching ability, the teaching gift that God gives me, and do that instead of, or whatever that could be. Maybe you're just adding, this churchy thing that, hey, this is God wants me to do. I'm going to get rid of this, but it's really not fulfilling you in a way because it's not using your gifts properly.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, which brings me to just our final thought on all of this is can we exist as Christians without the church? And my answer is wholeheartedly no. Right. We can't. Like, we belong to one another. We're called to it. The Bible's very clear on it. There's no really workaround. Now, I will say, if you're struggling to find a home church, it's good to keep yourself plugged in to, God's word. I mean, but then once again, we've talked about this before. There is the personal responsibility. It's not just about the messages. It's about devoting yourself to God, being in his word, understanding his word,
right?
Prayer, like being devoted to God fully in our personal lives. Now, if you're in between churches and you're trying to figure out where should I be, then yeah, it's okay to have a season where I'm just watching messages at home because I don't know where I want to be. But we should, at some point, like I would say, you shouldn't allow that to go on for more than a few months. Like, we need to be part of a church community.
Yeah.
But I mean, some people need time to heal. Maybe something bad happened where you're like, I just don't trust the church. I don't trust being part of a community. Then there's nothing wrong with taking time back and just focusing on your relationship with God. But God desires for us to belong to one another. So after a few months, even if it's like half a year, after that season, start looking for another place where you could worship and you could trust and have conversations with like people and come to know what that church is all about. And then devote yourself to that community of believers, care for each other, bless each other. So yeah, the Christian without the church really cannot stand.
Yeah,
because we will convince ourselves always that our actions are fine, what we're doing is fine, and we'll end up allowing worldly things to enter in because there's no accountability.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the greatest reasons why we need fellow believers around us. So. Any final thoughts from you, Zach?
I think that was a good podcast, Stephen.
I enjoyed it immensely. I'm really enjoying this, and I hope you are too. So for Zach and Steve, have a podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm Zach.
And we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.